I'm glad you're feeling better.
Thank you.
I'm kicking the show right off with my biggest concern, right? Anthony Davis is not healthy. Can the Lakers get out of the... Listen, I don't think they can make a finals run unless both AD, obviously, and LeBron are healthy. Can they get out of the first round without Anthony Davis?
You know, Anthony, this is a sore subject for me because, I'm a true blue Laker fan. And I am very excited about what they can do if both of the stars are healthy, as you just mentioned. My biggest concern is AD is injury prone. Every time you turn around, even when he plays, it always looks like something else can happen. During the game, there's this cringe or, man, he goes down, you think he might not get up, or he gets hit and you think, oh man, he's going to be hurt. I'm really concerned because the great Laker teams that I know, those guys were tough. They didn't get hurt. The great players don't get hurt. They just continue to play and they play through things and they do that. And I just, obviously I know the talent he is. He was very monumental in helping the organization win the championship a year ago. He's very important to them having at one time a 2-1 lead. And now all of a sudden he may not be there. So I'm disappointed for the fans. I'm disappointed for the other players. And more so, I'm disappointed for him because now he's going to start to get that label.
Yeah, and listen, in a utopian world, all the players are always healthy and you really can see who's the best. But the reality is, right, AD, can he be a number one? I don't know. Can he be a number two? 100% if healthy, right? Mm-hmm. It's been my knock on Chris Paul. I get some people who agree, some people who push back when I say the reason why I don't have him, I have him top 15, but not top 10. And the reason is when his teams needs him the most, he tends to be hurt. Again, that's no fault of his own. It's not a knock on his play, but they need you. We see now Embiid in Philadelphia, hurt again. We don't know how long he's going to be out. So, or if he's questionable. So that's what scares me too, right? I know that if AD's healthy, we're in good shape. I'm nervous that he's not hurt. So, or that he's not there, obviously.
You made a great point even about Chris Paul, because the times where he was on teams, whether it was the Rockets or other teams in the past where you thought, well, they're about to go to the finals. They play really good during the year. The playoffs start, he gets injured. And it looked like it was repeating itself, with the Suns. And so he goes down, hurts his shoulder. The first thing you start thinking is, here we go again.
Yeah, it's funny how many times I've heard, oh, they would have won that series if Chris Paul hadn't got hurt.
Right.
But that's part of the game. But he did get hurt, or you hear, oh, they wouldn't have won that series if this, I remember the Raptors, Golden State a couple of years back. Oh, well, if KD was healthy, but he wasn't. You play who's in front of you, and that's how it is. All right, so I want to shift gears from basketball because we do got a game tonight that we're going to go watch here in a minute. But every week we've been taking kind of a look at different divisions. This week it's an interesting one because for me it feels like, I don't want to say the have and the have-nots, but really it kind of is, right? We got the AFC South. You've got at the top, right? You've got the Colts and the Titans. So the Colts now have made a move at quarterback, bringing in Carson Wentz. We think that's probably a good marriage there. What are your expectations for the Colts? Are they obviously they're going to be it's between them and the Titans, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong for that division, but how do you think Wentz is going to fit in there?
Absolutely, Anthony. I think the Colts are contenders. They have a very good defensive football team. They have a good young runner. They just took Carson Wentz from the Eagles, paired him with a coach that knows him extremely well. It feels like he can get the best out of him. You don't make that trade without feeling comfortable that you can help this young man get back to where he needs to be. At one time, he was going to be an MVP in the league. So I think that move kind of propelled them over the top if they can truly get him back. But they were, to me, a more athletic, a more mobile quarterback away from really contending for the Super Bowl. So I would not be surprised if they have a tremendous season.
Is Carson Wentz, or how much of, if you say yes, a big improvement from where Philip Rivers was in his career last year?
I think he's a huge improvement. Not that Philip couldn't play. I mean, every quarterback at some point in time starts the downward trend. And I thought Philip played well. He gave them a chance to have a really good season. Could he propel them to where they needed to go? I didn't think so, because I didn't think he had the athletic ability anymore, which he was never a runner, but he could have some escapability to make some. They were missing that. And so I think they're going to find that in Carson. I think he's eager to go back out and prove that he's one of the better quarterbacks in the league. So I think timing's everything, and I think it's the right time.
Yeah. It's funny. I feel like we just had this conversation. If he can stay healthy, they're going to be in good shape. All right. So the other half, I guess, in that division is the Tennessee Titans. Obviously, Derrick Henry is just a wrecking ball. Someone asked the question, I think it was X amount of dollars, but you have to try and tackle him. I'm like, nah, I don't need the money that much. Ryan Tannehill has looked better since leaving Miami. Do they have enough? Have they done enough kind of to win that division next year? Or do you expect them to stay at the top of the division?
I hope they do. When I think of the Titans, I think of changes. I think of changes on offense. The coordinator is now the head coach at Atlanta. I think there's still a marriage that's got to happen that way. If I'm the new coordinator, I immediately turn the ball and hand the ball to Henry as often as I can, just to take that pressure off of me. But at the same time, they have AJ Brown's receiver. They have some other young receivers. They're in their hunt for Julio Jones. And I think they need a player like Julio Jones to try to give him a chance to be one of the teams that people don't talk about that they really talk about. Defensively is where they've had their struggles. They haven't been the same team defensively. That's the head coach's forte. So I would suspect that that's going to change a little bit this year. But their issues were in the secondary. So did they do enough to shore up their corner situation? Do they have enough young talent in the secondary to handle these other teams in their division?
So let me ask you that question. We'll pause there on this division for a second. Julio Jones. Obviously, they've been in discussion. I think, look, if every team in the NFL should probably at least make a phone call, right? When you have a talent like Julio Jones. Do you still think he's got enough in the tank? And if you were, an odds maker, where either do you think he's the best fit, or who needs him the most?
There is no question in my mind that he has enough in the tank. And you said it best. Everybody could use a Julio Jones. The team that I think that if I had a chance to really impact my offensive football team for a quarterback, it would be Baltimore. If I'm Baltimore, I'm trying to go get this guy for Lamar Jackson and pair him. Not that they don't have sufficient talent, but that talent has never equated to a great passing game. Hopefully getting a guy like Julio Jones means that you're in the top 10 in the passing statistics as you move forward, because he's just that talented. So I would think a team like Baltimore, who I think are just a piece or two away from being true Super Bowl contenders, and have a quarterback who needs to continue to grow in the passing game, give him a star wide receiver that he can fire at whenever he needs to, and you got a chance for him to play better.
Yeah, it rarely, if ever, hurts a quarterback to have a star go-to receiver.
And it's so true. They were talking about the Deion Sanders era, on I Am Athlete podcast, and he said it's different. He goes, back in those days, whether it was Troy Aikman, Joe Montana, Steve Young, those guys, it was like Batman had a Robin. You think of the San Francisco days, those quarterbacks were Jerry Rice. Right. You think of Dallas with Michael Irvin. Everybody, those guys, that's what they have. And it's different now. You have quarterbacks who might not be Hall of Fame type, and then the receivers are not at the same caliber. So it's just interesting. But that's why I say, if you get a chance to get a guy like Julio Jones, you have to have the discussion. You have to make the phone call, as you mentioned.
Do you think the salary or the salary cap, or how much quarterbacks are getting paid, is that making it harder to have that quarterback, star wide receiver combination? Because you see, teams like the Bears have an Allen Robinson, don't have a quarterback. Other teams have the quarterback, Baltimore, right? Doesn't necessarily have a star wide receiver to pair with that superstar quarterback. Is that bad general managers putting teams together, or is it cap foot problems?
I think it's a combination of both. I think, sometimes you can walk into a bad cap situation. Sometimes people value other things other than that position. I can have one, I want two. I got a chance to get two players for one. I just think when you have a perennial cornerstone talent, that you have a chance to put on your team, you can't pass them by.
Yeah.
Because they make a huge difference. There's good, better, and best. And some guys are really good, but we're talking about one of the best receivers to ever play the game when we talk about Julio Jones.
Yeah, love him. I like I said, I think any team would be lucky to get him. So to what we expect to be the bottom two teams in the division, and going in different directions, right? So the Jags obviously look like they are on the come up. They got their quarterback. We think they made an interesting. I get it and I don't get it. The guy Travis out of Clemson, the running back. When James Robinson, I get it. He's undrafted. He had a good season. You don't necessarily want to put all your eggs in that basket, but I think drafting a running back that early when you have other needs was an odd choice. However, it looks like their offense, right? They're on the come up. Whereas the Texans, do we even know what's happening in Houston? Like, we still don't know about what's going on with Deshaun Watson. There's so many question marks. So let's start there so we can end maybe on a positive note. With the Texans, is it going to be will the chaos off the field translate to chaos on the field, or would you be shocked if it kind of brought them together?
I would be shocked if it brought them together. I think the biggest piece in this is you're talking about one of the premier quarterbacks in the league may not play. I think that's the biggest deal for the Houston Texans, who is the face of their franchise, one of the premier players in the league, may not have an opportunity to step on the field for you. So I think that's more concerning than most things. I think you can work through some of the other issues, but I think that's the biggest issue they have. They have a new coaching staff. So there's new leadership. The front office is still what it is. So there's questions there as well. So what happens with Deshaun Watson? What happens? Is he on the team, off the team, not going to play, have a chance to play, career done? I hope that's not the case. I like the young man. Obviously, if the things that are alleged have happened, then I think that's something that has to be dealt with. But at the same time, where are they today? Tyrod Taylor is a quarterback. He's very serviceable. I think he's a good player, but he's not Deshaun. So right. That's different.
It's impossible to answer this question maybe, but I'm going to ask it. The crazy, I guess, accident, we'll call it, that happened to Tyrod at the beginning of last season with the lung. Is that something that you've seen before? That injury, I mean, and is it something you can come back? Like, lungs tough, right? Like, you need to breathe.
Never seen that before in my career. Never heard of it before, and I was in the league a long time. I'm very happy that Tyrod is able to come back. I think he can. I think he's handled it as well as any player probably would. And again, he's now poised to be the starting quarterback in Houston. So I'm excited to see how he does this year.
Okay, so the Jags. It's funny. They pick up Trevor Lawrence, and yet we don't really talk about them until they sign Tim Tebow. I know how I feel about Tim Tebow. But we'll save that for the end. Trevor Lawrence, is he day one starter in Jacksonville, and is he, helping that team get wins, or is this, hey, it's a learning year and we're going to take our lumps?
I think there's no question he's a day one starter. There's no one on the roster better than him. So you got to go play the best players. And so I think that's first and foremost. They don't have, a window to not playing, because the guy that they would be playing if they keep Minshew, that's who they would be playing. And they obviously,
listen, if you listen to his cult following, he's the
yes,
guy, right?
yeah, absolutely. I don't think the organization feel that way, or they wouldn't have made the decision they made. I think the biggest question about Jacksonville is they got to decide who they're going to be. When you have your coach doing WWF commercials and hitting people with computers, and you got your assistant head coach doing footballs, and they're doing WWF in your office, that's a whole different world to me. And, like you said, I know we'll talk about the Tim Tebow situation, but I think they are a team that is better than people thought. I think they have talent. I think they've added to that talent. Can he do what he's done in college at the pro level? We're going to find out. He's made some questionable decisions and choices. I think we all know that, from the strength coach to, these things that have been occurring lately, to putting Tim Tebow on the team. So it's just going to be what that looks like. Now, I hope they start 8-0 so everybody be quiet, but if they lose a few games early, obviously everybody's going to start taking pot shots out. So It's going to be interesting.
Do you think that stuff that they're doing off the field is obviously it's done intentionally, right? They're trying to, look, let's be honest, they're trying to sell tickets. That's why they signed Tim Tebow. They're trying to get attention. They're trying to do something different.
They have attention. And but they hired Urban Meyer. That's the biggest attention you can get. But I don't need to bring, wrestlers, WWF wrestlers into my organization for what? I mean, they don't play football, And
some of them tried.
Yeah.
Quite a few of them tried. Yeah.
Yeah, they have. We're not going to get a following because of that. I don't know. I mean, it's what you do on the field in the National Football League. It's playing good football, exciting football, innovative football. That's going to give them a chance to be successful in Jacksonville.
All right, so let's go to the Tim Tebow thing. I'll cite with how I feel. So I think I know, right? It was Urban Meyer. It's not. I want to make sure I get the saying right. It's sometimes not what you know, it's who you know. And let's just be honest. Tim Tebow's on this team because him and Urban Meyer are super tight. It's like his dad, if you will. Like, that's why he's on this team. He's been gone for years. He didn't pan out as a quarterback. I've said this multiple times, and I'll say it again. As a tight end, we don't know if he can run a route. We don't know if he can catch a ball. We don't know if he can block. And I guarantee you there's probably 100 other, college tight ends or undrafted tight ends or guys who are unsigned free agents at the tight end position who we know are better than him. Then, and I don't know, listen, I've seen this so many times that they said it was true and other times that they said it was not true, but I got to ask you this one because it makes me question. I'm going to wear 85 in honor of Aaron Hernandez. I get it. It was his teammate. I get it. It was his friend, but I think what happened after, right? It would be the equivalent of Josh Allen saying, I'm wearing 32 to honor O.J. Simpson, the greatest Buffalo Bill ever. It's just, it's puzzling to the general public. So I think it's a bad move. It's a bad signing. I know why you did it, but then you make bad choices after that. What do you think?
Anthony K, I think you nailed it. My concern is privilege. Here is a player who was drafted in the first round as a quarterback, didn't make it in the National Football League, didn't play baseball, didn't make it at baseball. And that doesn't make him a failure by any stretch. I think he's been, obviously, guys, a Heisman Trophy winner. He's a, NCAA champion, got an opportunity in the National Football League that a lot of people don't get, did some good things. And then, the league caught up to him. Now has, did some broadcasting and played baseball and has a following. But that don't make him a great player, and that don't make him a tight end either. I mean, you said it. There's a whole bunch of guys who have put in the work, the years, the blood, the sweat, the tears, who can't get that opportunity that he got, who are better tight end prospects than he is. And I think that becomes a problem in your locker room because players know you're not going to fool them. They won't say anything because no one's going to lose their value saying something, speaking up against something that they know the head coach wants. But at the same time, the first chance they get to show that it is the wrong decision, it will be shown and it will be loud because people are going to make it really loud. And I just think your first year, that kind of distraction in your locker room that way, I don't think you need it, you know? And they live right next door to each other. So what you see is what it is. You said it. I mean, they're best of friends. Well, we all can't hire friends. It's not how it works.
No,
you know?
you thought he would have learned that from the trainer, right? Like it was a bad decision and it was oops. And here's another one that I guess he could get away with because listen, I think we confuse and people get on me because they confuse. I'm not saying he's a bad guy. Right. I think Tim Tebow might be one of the nicest, maybe greatest off the field guys there might ever be. He's a great guy. I'm also not taking away from his college career. He had a phenomenal college career. Some say one of the best ever. But then when I hear, well, all he does is win. Well, no, in the NFL, that's not all he did. Right. And he had what, 3 or 4 opportunities. Yes, he had a nice run in Denver, but let's be honest, there was a really good scheme created for him, and they had a phenomenal defense. Phenomenal. Like I think we're under-evaluating it, right? We're underappreciating how good that defense was. It's not like he won a Super Bowl. They didn't go and defeat. And like I said, so okay, you didn't make it. So, he's a great locker room guy. Well, I don't know. How many tight ends lead your locker room, right? And, when you say all he does is win, not in the NFL.
But why do we need a guy, I hate to say it this way, and you just said at that position to police the locker room? That's what your quarterback does. That's what the middle linebacker does. That's what the cornerstone players of your team does. You don't need somebody to come in from the outside who was with you in college to prove to a National Football League player. And Tim knows that as well as anybody.
Right. Because it's almost like an honorary captain. Like it's not at this level. You don't need that, do you?
No. And I just, do you want somebody to carry the message? That's if you think you have no message carriers. Yeah, but I don't think they need that. I mean, they have some well-established good players in Jacksonville, and for them to do what they're doing, it was disappointing.
I kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier, the running back that they drafted out of Clemson, and I call him Travis because I know that I'll butcher his last name, Atini, but Travis. I'll just call him Travis from Clemson. Do you think was I the only one that thought that's kind of odd? Or do you think, listen, everybody has kind of committee backs now anyway, so it was a good pickup?
It's odd, but they better start playing at running back. I spent 3 months with the young man, as I helped train him at the House of Athletes. And he's very talented. And there's no question they had a player last year who played really well for him as a free agent. But he's not Travis. If Travis is who you say he is when you drafted him, you got to let him play running back. That's where his value is. That's how he sees himself. Not that he can't go out and run routes and do those things, but you didn't draft him to play receiver. So why is he playing receiver? So I just, and within the organization, if we're going to put our chip on a guy, doing something to bring value to the organization that we've seen him do in college. That's what we're paying him for.
Right.
And we're saying, no, we want you to learn a whole different skill set. Well, if they're doing that to enhance his ability to be on the field at the same time they have Robinson on the field, great. If you're saying that this guy's a full-time wide receiver, as some of the reports have come out and said, that is absolutely not smart.
And that's the confusing part because I see those reports, I hear that. And then just before we started, I went just to check on Jacksonville's, on their team site, and I look at their depth chart, and he's listed as their number 1 running back. So okay, that makes more sense to me. I think it's interesting. Okay, so I've got Colts, Titans, Jags, Texans, in that order. Would you change anything there?
I wouldn't change one. I think that is well thought out. Tennessee is the only team that could truly unseat the Colts. And the Colts can only destroy themselves, from within. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah. So we talked a lot about the Jags doing some stuff to, appease the fans And listen, even the wrestling thing, I know there's like that affiliation with AEW, and I get it. But fans have been in the news a little bit more. I never like when fans or referees, right, or umpires are in the news. Something's wrong when they're in the news. So we've had, in no particular order, the popcorn incident, throwing popcorn on maybe the worst player you could do anything to, because he will come after you if you just say the wrong word.
Yes.
And so they're dumping popcorn on Russ. They're spitting at Trey, and they're throwing water bottles at Kyrie. So, in my message to you before we started, I said, is fans gone wild? But it's not like this is new, right? Fans have always done stuff, right? And look, I get it. It's the vast, vast, vast majority of fans that do this stuff. You coached in Oakland. One of the most, listen, when I lived in the Oakland area, I went to a couple of games. I was sure to wear black and silver, but they were a rough crowd. But I think, is the NFL still a little bit further removed because of proximity to the NBA, and maybe that's why we're seeing it more in the NBA? And what's your take on it?
I think so, Anthony. No question. I mean, everybody, you're gonna laugh when I say this, but a lot of people are blame it on COVID. That the fans are back. They're in. I mean, it was so emotional. They went there. Now they're there. Things are just stop already. When people start bringing that up, I get really disappointed. I think people know right from wrong. The three players that we're mentioning, that these things happen, and then have a guy run out and act like he's gonna putting in a freaking layup in Philly, and him on the court. I mean, he's tackled by a security guard. I mean, there's just too many of these things happening. It's almost like copycat.
Yeah.
Somebody's seeing it, and then somebody else is going to try it. And I think it's only going to get worse if people don't make examples of these guys. And I think that's what's starting to happen with the arrest, of the young man from that did what he did to Kyrie. Because I think it needs to happen. If they don't send a stern warning to the offenders, then it's going to be a problem.
So that was going to be my next question: is do you think they should press charges against all these people? I want to say guys, but just in case maybe, but most of them are guys. Let's be honest, right? Do you think they should press? So you think that, because this isn't new. Like I was talking about this earlier. I said, look, they used to throw tomatoes, and everyone's like, hey, that's wrong. It go way back, and throwing anything on the court. But it's not. Listen, to blame COVID, you're right. It's lazy because the Malice in the Palace was before COVID. You had guys throwing pop. It's not the first time someone's dumped his popcorn as someone was going out. We've had instances where, whether it was refs or players, had to be escorted out of stadiums, or at least off the court. It's not new. So to blame COVID, you're right. I think it's lazy. You think you'd just be happy to be there. So obviously, I think step one is they're banned for life, right? They should never be allowed back in that stadium. But do you think they should all get charges pressed as well?
I do. And because you think of the players, they have no other recourse. I mean, a fan could actually injure you. And all of a sudden you say, okay, well, you're just, you can't come into the stadium anymore. I don't think that's enough. And it may not deter some of these particular incidents that are happening. I think you legitimately have to do the right thing and make sure that, hey, look, we've sent a stern warning to any and every offender who would do something to one of the NBA players. Not that they have kid gloves on, but at the same time, you have to do what's right. And I just don't think it's fair right now. I think you press charges. I think you make sure that they are not allowed to be associated with the team ever again. And that's what you have to do.
Because look, we're lucky, right? One, that we get to go to sporting events like that guy, especially the one in Boston, right? Those tickets weren't cheap, right? Yeah. So you paid a lot of money to go there. So, but what I was going to say was, we're very lucky that we've never had another incident like Monica Seles. If you remember the tennis player, she was stabbed, right? Yeah. We're, people think, oh, it's a one-time thing. No, I think we're just really lucky that because there's opportunity, like you said, running onto the court, that easily could have been something else. And that's what scares me, is that if you let it go, right, the next thing is bigger. The next thing is always bigger. It's worse. That's kind of the way it works.
Well, I think it was really interesting. How do we know of the ones that did not happen?
Right.
That were stopped, that people all of a sudden never heard of because it was never let out. And I think that's the other side of it. And so I think the NBA, I think, have to be very diligent with this and really take it as a threat and handle it appropriately. Because if they don't, you said it. I mean, it could get worse.
So baseball, I believe it's baseball. It might have been soccer. Maybe it's both. When someone runs onto the field now, they don't show them, right? They purposely don't let the camera kind of show what they're doing because they know, look, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to get attention. Do you think it was wrong because they released the name of the guy who threw the bottle at Kyrie, and they released his name and said, this is the person they're charging, they're pressing charges, et cetera. Do you think that's a bad thing? Because let's be honest, part of what they're doing is to get attention. And by putting their name out there, other people think, hey, this is a way for me to become famous.
That, I mean, this is a copycat league, and that's what, I mean, that's what people do. They see them do it. I'll do it. What's going to be the consequences? They weigh it, and if they think it's not much, then, oh yeah, you're going to get somebody to do it again. That's why I think, again, the NBA has to come out and be very stern and harsh about punishment in order to deter this, because it's going to happen if they don't.
Have you ever gone through, obviously, yeah, like I said, football, the proximity is a little bit different, but have you ever had to deal like them throwing stuff onto the field at you guys or?
Oh yeah. I mean, but never at the players, they throw it onto the field as a protest,
Right.
in the, I get that. That's going to happen from time to time, but I've never witnessed or seen anybody throw a bottle or plastic container or anything.
Right.
At players he's walking in.
I did see some Eagles fans throw snowballs at Santa, but but also that wasn't a player.
Now they're different.
that might be the one exception. Last thing on this one, and it's one. Listen, Stephen A. was having a talk on First Take, and he brought up the issue of race. When we look at this, right, it's a very, very high number of white guys throwing stuff at black athletes. Now it's the NBA, so 70% of the or more, right? I get it, but at the same time, do you think race plays any role in this? And is it becoming, and this is maybe a good thing, are the players saying, hey, enough's enough, we're not going to stand for this anymore?
I agree with both. I think it is an issue, a racial issue. I think the players have finally said we've had enough. I think LeBron speaking out, saying we want to know who that player is, kind of set the tempo and mode that the players, they weren't going to go for it no more. Kevin Durant speaking out. I mean, I think, and I think we've noticed when the star NBA players say something, things move, things change.
Right.
And so I think it's going to change. And it is. I mean, we're not talking about minorities standing up and throwing stuff at the Caucasian players. We're talking about Caucasian throwing stuff at the minority players, and all those players we're talking about that it happened with, they're alphas, and so people like them. I mean, obviously Kyrie played in Boston. They want to use that against him. Russell is who Russell is, Russell can get going, and people don't like that. Right. People kind of say, hey, you think you're somebody that you're not, but he's still an entertainer, and so he deserves the right to do his job as well as anybody at the safety of what they offer.
Yeah, I think the comment was older players, like if we go back 30, 40 years, were kind of like, hey, yeah, it's part of it, right? They didn't want to rock the boat, and then other people will say, well, hey, they should just be happy to get paid millions of dollars, to play this game. And it was in the same thing with Stephen A, where Max Kellerman was like, no, they didn't hit the lottery. They didn't win because they scratched a ticket. They worked their lives, right? They put in a lot of hard work to get to where they are, and they deserve to be treated with that respect. And I think you're right. I think he was right when he said, like, older players just kind of, hey, that's just the way it is. They let it go. And now today's players are saying, hey, guys, enough's enough. And that's a good thing, because it shouldn't happen.
But we talked about it a long time ago. This diversity, inclusion, the issues that are happening in race, they're still there. And no one, every now and then you'll get somebody try to make this a black-white issue, but it is. Let's see it for what it is. Let's quit denying what's really happening and really dig. I always use this term, dig into it and see what it really is. Somebody's mad at somebody for what? What are you mad at Kyrie for?
Well, okay, so I get why he's mad at Kyrie. I do. He went and kind of stomped out like a cigarette on the Celtics logo. I get it. If I was a player of the Celtics, I probably would have run out and pushed him. Probably,
Right.
like they did with Terrell Owens when he stomped on
When
the
did this
star.
happen? I didn't hear that.
Oh yeah. So what happens is he goes to the middle of the court. They had just won the game. Kyrie steps on the Celtics logo and kind of, like he's putting out a cigarette butt on the floor, and then turns around as he's walking out the tunnel. The fan throws the bottle. So here's the thing. I get the anger. I do. I even get the booing throughout the game. I understand you hate him because he was on your team and the way he left. I get it. But then there's that line, right? I can boo him.
Yes.
I can scream at him, but I don't throw something at him. And that's where I'm not the one that says, hey, let's make it about race all the time. But I unfortunately, you know me, I look it up, I do my research, I see, and facts just kind of punch you in the face and say, well, here's a bunch of white guys who probably had a few drinks who think I've paid this ticket, and they'll tell you, right? I've paid this ticket for these guys to entertain me. It's their job to entertain me, and if I want to yell and scream and throw stuff at them, that's my prerogative because I bought this ticket. And the reality is, no, it's not. It is your prerogative to go watch the game, to enjoy them, to boo them, to cheer them, absolutely. But then there's that line. Right? There's that line because you feel safe up in the crowd throwing it. And I've, to a much, much lesser extent, I understand that, or they're hiding behind their keyboards and they're like, you're the biggest dummy in the world. And, some expletives. I get it every day. I get it.
I do too.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. And it's like, yeah, you're real. Everyone's real tough. And, when they're safe and someone in the crowd throwing a bottle knows he's not going to come up and punch me in the face. No. Would he ever walk up to them in the middle of the street and throw a bottle right at him or dump pop? Would you go up to Russell Westbrook? I get it. He's not a fighter. I'm not saying that. But would that same person walk up to Russell Westbrook and dump popcorn on his head and just stand there in front of him?
No.
Never.
No.
So why do it that way? That's what bothers me, I think, more than anything. It's just this entitlement that I bought my ticket, so I'm allowed to do that. Or, this fake tough guy who just feels I can do it because I'm in the safety of of the crowd or behind a computer. That's what bothers me.
I think you got some fake tough guys, that's for sure.
I think there's quite a few. So the last thing before I let you go, I don't know if you could sit up a little bit because I want to make sure everybody sees the Tennessee State. We're down there. How are things going? What's on the agenda?
Going good. The players. It was their first day today. We got a chance to meet with them as a team, got a chance to start into the cardiovascular portion of this process, start to get them installed so they can learn systems. It was an unbelievable turnout. It was an unbelievable first experience with them. Now we just have to stay consistent and keep it going. We as coaches, we get to be around them for 2 hours during the week, only 2 hours. You can pick it up. It can be 30 minutes every day. It could be, 2 1 hour days, but you get to play with those 2 hours however you want. So there's a lot of work we got to cram into this little time in order to get these guys up to speed and understand what we're trying to do.
So how are you guys breaking up? Are you doing little 30-minute chunks every day, or are you doing longer ones?
No, we're doing a longer one because we're installing right now. I think as we get closer to installation being in, then hopefully we can get it to where it's 30 minutes so you can spend more time with them every day as opposed to twice a week.
Right. And so first day, so things that's exciting. It sounds like I didn't get my call, so I guess you don't want a guy that runs a 45-second 40. So that's okay. I was out training yesterday, but I didn't
if you're training and you're still running 45, that's not good. Maybe you need to stop training.
I think I could walk it a little bit quicker. So that's all I had. Thanks, Coach. Like I said, it's great to have you back. I'm glad to feel